Welcome, everybody, to the Hot Tag Hooligans Wrestling Podcast Show with myself, Ehren and Tom. We got a special episode tonight, and help us break that down. Aaron Silvers is back. Aaron, how's it going?
Hey, glad to be back. Things are great.
Yeah. And like I said, special episode tonight. We're not going to talk about the current product and what's going on. We decided to have a little, what do you want to say, discussion as far as what are the top five best finishing maneuvers of all time, in our opinions. And that will make it very great because, I know some of the people Tom really likes in the finishing maneuvers, I don't care for, and I'm sure Aaron's the same way. So this is going to be very, very entertaining, I feel like. We'll start with everyone giving their number fives, and then we'll kind of go to the top. So, Aaron, since you're the guest of the show tonight, what is your number five best finishing maneuver of all time?
All right. So, had to put this on the list, not because of its flash or anything, but because I've actually been put in it as a child. The old sharpshooter, Bret Hart's sharpshooter. Had to start with the submission.
Scorpion Deathlock.
It's different. It's different. It's the sharpshooter, Tom. It's the sharpshooter.
It is.
Whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. So to me, that's a pretty solid number five. Of course, I'm a Bret guy. So yeah, absolutely number five for that. For me, I may have some slack. I was hoping it would flip the screen right, but it doesn't look like it's going to that way. Y'all don't think I'm coming up with these off the top of my head. But number five for me is the People's Elbow.
Whoa.
By The Rock. And I know sometimes he didn't use it as a finisher. And there will be, let's be honest, there's some wrestlers who over time graduated to different maneuvers. But The Rock did win quite a few matches with the People's Elbow. I just picked this one because I don't remember a move, and maybe wrestling history, where the fans were fully anticipating it. He can capture their imagination right in that moment. Everyone stops, stands to their feet as he's ready to perform this maneuver. And for its time, it was kind of groundbreaking. Let's be honest, it probably didn't hurt that bad. And it probably shouldn't have finished anybody. But for me, the People's Elbow at number five. Tom.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to touch on that one for a second. It didn't make my top five, but it is fantastic because it is the dumbest move anyone has ever created. But The Rock, being who he is, got that thing over, and everyone loved it. And it's just the silliest thing in the world. But it did not make my top five. My number five is actually the choke slam. There's nothing special about the choke slam if just some normal person does it. But if you have somebody like The Big Show or Kane or The Undertaker, it really is an impressive move, especially the way that they can handle the other opponents. Obviously, it's 2022. We're a little smartened up on what's going on, and they get a lot of help. But it looks absolutely fantastic. So I had to put it at number five.
Now, do you have a specific favorite person who does the choke slam for a feature?
For me, it's Kane. It's absolutely Kane.
Solid choice. I would agree with that. I would say it's a close between Kane and Undertaker on that one. I've seen Undertaker do some pretty awesome ones, especially with some smaller guys. That really makes them look like they were devastated in that. So, pretty solid choice, though. I like it.
No love for the Hurricanes choke slam, huh?
Nah.
No, I don't think I'm going to go with that.
Yeah, I knew you would have the choke slam on your list. I just knew it. You love the big guys so much. I knew that was going to be on your list. Aaron, number four for you is what?
Kevin Owens, pop-up powerbomb. It's one of my favorites. It's a little innovative to me. The way they slingshot off, come out, he throws them up in the air like that and brings them down. It's been in some really, really great spots over the years, especially, Sami Zayn in NXT, putting him out of action for a little bit. He's put a few people through the table with that move. It's just awesome to me. It's pretty creative.
Yeah, the pop-up powerbomb is a really good move. I always liked it when D'Lo Brown did his version of it back in the Attitude Era as well. But Kevin puts a little bit more thump to it, especially with his persona as he's delivering it. It comes with vengeance. I really like the pop-up powerbomb as well. It didn't make mine, but I agree. I like that one. Tom, your thoughts on the pop-up powerbomb?
Well, here's the thing about these lists. We could do these again in 3 weeks, and if we really sit down and think about it again, we may change our list. That's one I didn't even come to the top of my head, but it's a fantastic one. And my favorite is when he would do it on the side of the apron.
Yep.
Because I legitimately feel like they're done. They're done for weeks after that. Like, I know how bad that has to hurt, and you have to do that safely for them to be able to continue and be able to live normal lives. You have to be someone special to be able to deliver that move and not actually hurt somebody bad.
Yeah.
So very impressive. It's a very impressive move.
A lot of trust involved with that one, especially he makes his debut on the main roster, beating Cena with that move.
Right.
So won me over right there.
All right, number 4 for me, in my opinion, is the best tag team finisher of all time. It's the 3D.
Oh, okay.
By the Dudley Boys. Let's be honest, it's a variation of a cutter. The way that they did it, and even tag teams nowadays, you kind of see them do variations of it. FTR kind of does a little bit of a variation of it with the pickup and to the knees. The Usos have done it as well, but no one did it better than the Dudleys. And for them to also include the tables into most of the 3D spots as well gave us a lot of memorable moments. And for two guys, another one captivates, the audience just by saying, Devon, get the tables. Everyone knows what's coming, right? They know it's a 3D coming. It's great. For me, it's the Dudleys at number 4 with the 3D.
Well, I won't give you my opinion on it yet because it's coming in a little while. So my number 4 is the pedigree. And I love the pedigree because Triple H got it over. It's another one of those moves where if just anybody does it, it doesn't have that same effect. But when he throws them arms up, he has the look on his face, his body language. He doesn't care what happens to them, and he puts their face in that mat. And when he pedigreed Cactus Jack at Royal Rumble 2000 in the thumbtacks sticking in his forehead, sold me on it forever. That's a great finishing maneuver. And let's be honest, if you really did that to somebody, they're done. They're done.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of a variation of some other moves and some things. He just puts a little bit of his own spin on it, but I think it stands the test of time.
Okay.
Yeah, I just never been a real good fan of the pedigree. I don't know what it is. I don't know. Maybe the low impact to it. After all the matches and the battles people are going through, it's just a slow drop. Now, granted, you can't protect yourself, so it is straight onto your face.
Yep.
It's just never really done a lot for me personally, but yeah, I can see what you're talking about.
Take one and see if your changes.
A lot of trust involved with that one, Tom. I mean, even
Yes.
with the opponent, they can't protect their face because their arms are behind their back, and then you got Triple H, the way he lands it. I'm surprised he hasn't blown his knees out more than he has over the years. So you got to respect that.
All right, number 3, Aaron, for you.
All right, this one's going a little bit further back. The old shooting star press from Evan Bourne. Innovative, athletic, just super awesome to see, especially when he lands it on point. I mean, in my opinion, it's one of those somersaults / frog splash together. And I love that shooting star press from him. I wish we would have been able to see Evan Bourne longer than what we did on the main roster there in WWE. I know he's doing other things now, but that shooting star press is awesome.
See, that was one of my honorable mentions that I was going to mention before we got to number 1. And for me, it's Billy Kidman's and it's Paul London's shooting star presses for me. I think that those are two of the most beautiful things when done right. And that is such a hard maneuver. Just for me, as a kid. I would watch people like do them off the diving boards at the swimming pool, and I never could hit it for nothing. So to see these people be so tired in the middle of a match and then get towards the end of the match and stand and try to balance on a rope and hit that is crazy. And let's don't forget Lesnar could even pull it off back
Yep.
in the day, even though at Mania 19 he kind of fell on his head. But yes, that is a spectacular move. That was one of my honorable mentions. So yeah, kudos to you for putting that one on the list.
I mean, it's one of those that for me it has the look more than anything, but it's super impressive. You can't go wrong with it. But I couldn't put it on my top 5 because I feel like it's not a move that I guess the people that were using it didn't get it over to the point that it was a devastating move that won a lot of matches and things like that. But as far as the visual and the athleticism involved, I don't know that it can be beaten when you use it under those criteria.
I like what you said there because most of the people who hit the shooting star presses were good at beating mid card guys to jobbers. Like we would see that, but they never reached the main event level to captivate the audience as far as pinning a world champion with a shooting star press. So I kind of get what you're saying as far as that goes. That's a pretty good point. All right, number 3 for me. Aaron's done said it. It's the sharpshooter from Bret Hart. And one of the reasons why it's because it's one of the most memorable submissions of all time in wrestling history, based upon the storyline that came out of, the screw job. And how many times in storyline modes through the years through the WWE have they gone back to the screw job when a sharpshooter is applied? It's just a really good submission move. And I know Tom's saying it's a Scorpion Death Lock, but I'm pretty sure Bret was doing it long before Sting was. So it's okay. Bret Hart's sharpshooter for me is the best submission finisher of all time, in my opinion. And so it gets number 3 for me.
It's definitely a good one. That's why I put it on my list also. When you think about the iconic moments, as you mentioned, Montreal screw job, Stone Cold bleeding while he's in it, laying on the ground, goes unconscious bleeding during that. The list goes on and on with moments with that sharpshooter. That's why I had to put it on the list. Plus, it was the only submission I put on my list. So pretty awesome. I'm glad you brought that one up.
I mean, let's be honest, it ain't helping Talia out any.
No, that's true.
She has won a Divas Championship and a Women's Championship and a Tag Championship with those.
She also was farting on air.
She does. That's the problem, though. It only works effectively if Bret does it. See, that's the thing, right? So it's just like the Young Bucks can super kick somebody 47 times, but it's different if Shawn Michaels super kicks you.
Yeah,
you're not getting up. So yeah. All right, Tom. Number 3 for you.
the Dusty Elbow.
Oh, okay.
I love it. I mean, you know how over that thing was? And so many people like incorporate that in their little spots and stuff. And it's just, to me, it's another one that's super silly, but I just absolutely love it. I love it.
Yep. I think you're right with that. I mean, it was something very simple, but it got over very quickly because, Dusty done all the legwork leading up to it, that he did the spin with the hands and everything, and it really brought it to life. And, that was on Busted.
Dusty was one of the guys that didn't have to do a ton of stuff because he was over, and he had the crowd in the palm of his hand. And you look back and you watch those things and you're just like, you listen to the crowd and you can tell they're so into it. And he ain't doing nothing. And I just get a lot of joy out of that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great comeback move. Definitely that, you saw him incorporate into his match and went perfectly with his charisma, because he was able to shuck and jive a little bit as he was throwing it. Probably wouldn't have made my top 20 list, but for you, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah. that's what we do these for. That way, all types of opinions, and also I'll Dusty throw many of them in a day. So
And I would say people would say that if you're going to go with an elbow drop, you would probably go with Macho Man. I can concede that, but there's just something about the way Dusty did it and how the crowd responded that of that for me personally.
all right, we're getting down to the meat and potatoes now. I feel like there could be some similarities coming. So we'll see here. Ehren, you're number two.
Number two, I've got to be specific on this one. Shawn Michaels super kick. I'm not going to throw the super kick out there because we know we see it 15 times in one match with the Young Bucks these days, to your point earlier. But when Shawn Michaels used to throw the super kick back in the day, and even still today when he has those little spots, it makes an impact. He's had so many memorable moments with that super kick, including, the backstage with Stan and the cameraman or the guy in the back hallway during the DX days. You had the one where, Shelton Benjamin comes off the rope and he done the super kick there, which one of the greatest spots in history, in my opinion. Just overall, that movie was just awesome back in the day. And it was cool before it was cool today. So I love it.
Well, and the thing about, Sean's super kick is like The Rock, he was another one. He would tune up the band.
Yep.
He'd get you ready for it. Everybody kind of saw what was coming a little bit. Sean's just one of those guys, and we'll have to do another kind of top, maybe some wrestlers or something category some other time. Sean's just weird with me because I always have felt like his second run was better than his first run. When he came back from retirement, I always thought that was way better. And a lot of people would argue with me and tell me, no, Sean was such on another level, before he dropped the belt to Austin. But I felt like his super kick moments were definitely better when he came back as well.
Yeah.
Because like I said, he started to really start to tune it up then. Definitely an iconic move that you cannot go to a wrestling show anywhere on the planet without seeing a super kick now.
Right.
And one of those reasons is because of Shawn Michaels.
Right. And that's, you're right with the tuning up the band part. Back when he did it early on in the first stint, you didn't see him do the tune up portion as much. And then he finally started learning the business even more when he came back. And he's like, I got to suck this crowd in before I get this in. So that's where that tuning the band comes in. It just awesome all around. That was my number two.
Yeah, and he was his version of it was very effective, and I feel like some of these people today need to go and like do a little training with him because theirs absolutely are terrible. They'll do 3 or 4 and then nothing happens. It's not a finisher for some people, but he's got that technique. The way he hits it just right, they're out. So I don't know, but this is one of those where I think we could do these lists again at a later time and we would have different ones on our list. I didn't put it in my top 5, but it would definitely be shuffled in my top 10. And depending on my mood or what I've recently been watching or whatever, it may get shuffled into that top 5.
It was one of them I debated about putting on my top 5, but I did not put on my top 5. Like I said, I think 1 to 10, I think my 1 and 2 are pretty solid, but I think 3 to 10, I could easily switch places with a bunch of them. And here comes some controversy because my number 2 pick is the Stone Cold Stunner.
Okay.
At number 2. I mean, I shouldn't have to go too big of an explanation with this one. From 1995 almost to 2002. That's the move of pro wrestling right there. That's the move if you're backyard wrestling right there. It's the move if you're wrestling in your house right there. You're hitting people with stunners. And when he hit McMahon with the stunner, everything changed. And for me, even today, Kevin Owens uses the stunner as an homage to Austin. It's perhaps one of the most recognizable moves. If I was to grab somebody off the street and say, what was Stone Cold's move in wrestling? They'd be like, I don't watch wrestling, but it's the Stone Cold Stunner. They would know it because somebody's probably given them one before in their life. So to me, number 2 is the Stone Cold Stunner.
Yeah, I don't think Aaron. There's a lot of explanation needed behind that one. It's another one of those that it's had a lot of memorable moments over the years.
Well, somebody might think that they can't believe I didn't put it at number one. So, I mean, that's where I'm thinking. So, Tom,
Yeah,
what's your number two?
For me, number two is the 3D. I just think it was kind of like what you said. It was impactful. It was another one that the crowd just ate it up. It was one of the highlights of the night. It didn't matter what happened, doesn't matter who won the match, that none of that mattered. As long as somebody got the 3D through a table. And that's how they would send them home happy. You go to a live show, somebody's definitely getting a 3D through a table. And I think it's hard to top that. And then you got, one of the best tag teams in the world right now, the Usos, who have borrowed the same move and gotten permission from them. And I think that it's a generational thing too, that, now the kids growing up are seeing the Usos do it, even though it doesn't hit quite as impactful to me with them as it did with the Dudley boys. But I think to the kids growing up, they're gonna, when they, once they find out that it was a move that they were stealing from another tag team, they're gonna go back and watch that and also see how great that was. It's just so impactful that I had to put it at the top of my list, but I can't put it at the top because of my number one.
Well, and back on the 3D real quick. There was no prejudice involved in it. If you're a man, woman, or child, they'd give it to you. And I
yep,
think that's one thing to help them get over is when they were giving Mae Young the 3D and Moolah the 3D, and people were like, "Oh my gosh, you're giving these old women this move," and really helped elevate it. So, yeah, good choice there with your number two. Before we get to number one, Aaron, give me two honorable mentions that you did not have on your list.
two honorable mentions for me, probably Jackknife Powerbomb, Kevin Nash / Diesel. And I would have to say another honorable mention for me, probably Rob Van Dam's 5-star Frog Splash.
Well, that was one of my honorable mentions was the 5-star Frog Splash, and then just the Frog Splash in general with Eddie D'Lo. The Frog Splash is just a really good top rope finishing maneuver, and there's so many ways you can do it variation wise. And I would agree. I do believe Rob's is the best, and even Montez Ford's kind of got a really good kind of splash version of it right now. I always like D'Lo's version as well. And then my other honorable mention is the 450 because I just remember the first time I ever saw Two Coat Scorpio do it, my mind was blown. I didn't know someone could do a 450,
Right.
especially from that distance and that height. I've seen people doing them off the diving board and get springs, and then they're jumping in the air and they've got enough room. I never thought somebody could do it, from I don't know what's the distance from the top rope to the bottom. Uh, you know, so the 450 and then of course the shooting star. Tom, your honorable mentions?
Jerry Lawler's pile driver, devastating, won him thousands of championships. Granted, it may have been in his own territory, but that's beside the point. Devastating move, banned in a lot of companies for the potential to injure someone, but very devastating. It looks fantastic. If you're doing it safe, it's a great move. The second one would be Jake the Snake's DDT. Just, people overuse the DDT now, just like they do the super kick, but his just hit different. His was that full no watered down DDT, just like the chemicals that they banned that people used to use that was called DDT, and now you get the watered down version and they don't work so well. It's the same thing with his finishing mover DDT. So those are two. I think they didn't make my top five just because of how they're used today and or not used today. It's hard for me to put them in the top five, but they're both where I think some of the most solid moves from back in the day.
Aaron, your number one is what?
So my number one goes, oddly enough, hand in hand with my favorite superstar going today. In my opinion, the best in the business today, Randy Orton, the RKO. Just so smooth, so quick. He draws the crowd in with it with the snake maneuver when he rolls over and starts beating that ring floor. We've seen RKO's out of nowhere all over the place through the years, including to one of my top five, the Shooting Star Press, into an RKO. We've seen the Seth Rollins into an RKO. I mean, I could just go on forever about it, but that RKO was just awesome. And of course, it was great that I was put that in my list because Orton's my guy. So,
All right.
Well,
I'll go ahead and say it. Number one, let me say it. Number one for me was also the RKO. So then we'll let you talk on it because I have a feeling that's not your number one. So, but yeah, it's just weird. And I know a lot of people would say, well, can't have the RKO without stunner. But I think the RKO has surpassed the stunner. And a lot of it has to do with the way social media is nowadays because they'll put Randy Orton into like a football play and you'll see him like just RKO somebody. And he does have great charisma with it. And it is one of those maneuvers. Yes, he can lay on the floor and he can pretend like he's about to hit you. 9 times out of 10, that's not when he gets you anymore. But the whole RKO out of nowhere for me is perfect for him because he's a snake. And not many people actually copy the RKO, which is kind of crazy. That now we can go to an indie show. Me and Tom did. There was one match had 27 cutters in like 2 minutes that we were sitting in. And we're like, Jesus, like, but it's different when it's Randy, right? Because Randy hits it, it's over. And for me, when he first started, he did like this little slam, and then he did a high cross body off the top rope there for a while. I'm glad to see that he elevated and was able to come up with a great move that really stuck throughout the years. And for me, it was also RKO. Tom, your thoughts on the RKO, or if that's your number one as well?
The RKO is great, and everything that you said was right. With the social media and everything, everybody knows what the RKO is because they've seen it and they're like, what is this? And it's just, a meme. But for me, my number one is the stunner. Stone Cold is my number one guy of all time, always will be. And I was the one giving everybody the stunner in the neighborhood. Any video game, any character I created, his finisher was the stunner. Like, to me, that's the be-all, end-all finishing maneuver. And yes, Orton's RKO has maybe went to different places because of social media, but social media wasn't there back when Stone Cold was doing his thing. So who knows what would have happened back then? Yeah. We could have been seeing pictures of the presidents getting stunnered. Well, he did that too. He just wasn't a president at the time. But you know what I mean? It's like, who knows what would have happened back then if we were under the same circumstances. And I just think it was the most over thing there ever was. You go to a live show, Triple H would get 4 or 5 stunners, and he'd be sharing a beer with him, and then of course spitting the beer out, and then the epic moments where people would like extreme sell the stunner, which would make for the best TV segments ever. The Rock comes to mind. He always wanted to outdo himself. Vince always took a shitty one. Like, they're just moments that I will never forget. And for me, they stand the test of time more than the RKOs do. The memes that other people create, to me, hold the test of time more than the actual RKOs that were done on TV. Not that there wasn't some really good ones. The Rollins ones that you mentioned, the Evan Bourne, that one, like there's been some really, really good ones that I definitely will remember. But Stone Cold for me is where it's at, and they're too similar of a move for me to put both of them in the top 5.
Right.
So,
yeah, that's a good one. I mean, we've heard the stunner a couple times already in this list, and I mean, I can't disagree with it being great. I mean, it's stood the test of time also because you've got people mimicking it You've got people doing, their own spin on it, like, where they're bouncing off the rope and doing a reverse one. And you got the Ember Moon one that she does, or Athena now, I guess. But it stood the test of time. And, back to, the RKO too, you think about back to the DDP days. He was doing diamond cutters. That's where we got this move from, in my opinion. And that's where he kind of, mimicked that. But, back to social media too, Tom. Back then the diamond cutter didn't have a chance to be on social media. So how big could it have been?
I was the one diamond cutting people in high school.
Yeah,
that's what we were doing. Awesome. We were diamond cutting people. So
yeah.
See, I was not a WCW guy, so like I wouldn't be doing anything that had anything to do with WCW at the time. I was a brand loyal idiot back then, and it was all WWE all day. Yep. So Diamond Cutter was number 2 at the time.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's the good. Like I said, that was going to be the good part about this list. If we did it 3 years ago, I probably would have put Stunner at number 1. I think Randy's really picked up his game here in the last few years for me, where I enjoy seeing the RKOs more than I do the Stunners. And that's just the way test of time. When, like you're talking about, you mentioned Savage. Back in the day, I probably would have told you Savage's elbow off the top. I actually loved it. No one gets an elbow off the top like Savage. So, and the spear. I mean, back in WCW days, I probably would have told you the Goldberg spear because he was killing people with that thing. So it's just different time. Next year, it'd probably be totally different for me. But I enjoy you guys coming on here and giving your opinions. Now, I'm going to go ahead and set it up. Okay. Ehren, next month you will be back.
Okay.
Top 5 tag teams of all time episode.
I've got you.
So go ahead. That gives us a little bit more time to start thinking about it. About a month from now, we'll come back with our top 5. And, for everyone out there, Tom and I have also kind of discussed, typically we do a year-end awards show. This year, we're not going to do that. We're going to have about 5 separate shows, kind of like this, where we'll give our top 5, maybe 10 wrestlers of the year, top 10 tag teams, top, whatever it is that we decide to do. We'll have Ehren back for one of those shows. We're going to have probably Ella J or somebody who's a great women's advocate come on for the women's part. We're going to kind of do some things a little bit different. We love getting different perspectives on things. So like Tom said, he didn't watch WCW, and there's a lot of people who don't watch AEW. So, but they may watch GCW or MLW more than what we watch. So it's kind of good to get those kind of different opinions in here as well. Ehren, thanks so much, sir, for coming on here tonight. Appreciate it.
No, pleasure's all mine. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Be thinking about them tag teams now. That one's going to be interesting too.
I agree.
That one's going to be interesting.
Yeah, any of these lists, I feel like I could come up with them, and I couldn't do what LaGreca does and laminate his lists. He's always talking about ain't no way I have to rip it up and start over in 2 weeks when something else happened or I thought of it a different way. But yeah, definitely fun coming up with these.
All right. For everyone out there, make sure you're hitting the subscribe button. We appreciate all the support as always. For myself and Tom, head over to PWTs. Pick up some new t-shirts that we've put up. We appreciate all the support. For myself, Ehren's got on the original Hooligan shirt right now. That's one of Tom's favorite shirts that we've actually put out. So thank you, sir, for purchasing that. We appreciate that. And I've got the Life is Short Watch Wrestling shirt on.
I got on today. I know you guys love that.
Yeah, we don't have any Cardinal shirts on there, thank goodness. So
not yet.
Not yet, yeah. There's no telling what Tom's going to create next.
There is a couple of Halloween shirts on there, so make sure you get them in time for you to wear them before Halloween.
Yeah, and if any member of Brave Nation's watching as well, we've got some Brave Nation shirts as well. We appreciate all the support. Like I said, for myself, Tom, and Ehren, everyone take care and have a good night.